so I won't wait too long to introduce our guest of honor, man of the hour. Some people call him the space cowboy. Some people call him the gambler of love. Some people call him Maurice, because that's his name. Maurice LaMarche.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're here to give you the,
I was teased relentlessly
I can imagine.
with that song in junior high school, and so that has now become a positive corrective experience for me to have you introduce me like that. Thank you. How you guys doing today? Good. I was ill,
Well,
very ill. If anybody came to the VA panel and expected to see me, I was actually up in my room, just shivering in bed. And I went out for breakfast and didn't. As soon as the breakfast came, the smell of it, I ran to the bathroom promptly. Yes. And so, yes, I woke up with a migraine, but it seems to have passed. I think knowing that I'm going to be being here with you guys, part of that brings endorphins to me. I actually feel better knowing that I'm among you. So thank you very much.
well, that just means that Maurice is a pro.
Well, half a pro. I missed the VA panel. So.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll take it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your kind
Now,
understanding.
we here at BabsCon, we like to think of ourselves as environmentalists. We like to use all parts of the guest, not just the bits that everybody knows about.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a waste. So we're going
Well, here's your canoe, okay? I got somebody who knows the joke.
So we're not going to just dive into the stuff that everybody knows. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back. We're gonna get all Oliver Twist with it here, and
I'm going to go deep.
deep.
Yes, deep indeed, my dear.
I'm gonna
Deep
play
into the
psychoanalyst
past, the
here.
heart of darkness.
So now you're not actually American, are you?
Not actually, and still not. I'm a Canadian citizen. Was born and raised in a few cities in Canada. Born in Toronto. Moved to Timmins, Ontario, a little tiny mining town in northern Ontario. Those are my first memories. The place regularly gets to like 40 degrees below zero with the wind chill factor. This is why I can still walk around in a t-shirt in 50-degree weather and just what cold? My blood is permanently thickened, and then back to Ottawa, Canada, and then back to Toronto.
So wait, so you were born where Tara was?
Yes, I was born in Toronto. Yeah,
Yeah,
Tara and
yeah,
I are. I can remember Tara's family store very vividly on my trips downtown. So.
But my understanding is that entertainment was something that you didn't think was possible for you.
No, it's funny. Canada has done very well bringing us some terrific comedy. Second City and yes, Air Farce and things like that. And but when you're from you begin your life in a small town. Even though one of the members of Kids in the Hall, another great Canadian contribution to comedy, is from Timmins.
Do you know which one?
I can't remember which
Go ahead.
one of the guys. Name them. I know it's not Scott, and I know it's not
Dave Foley, Bruce McCullough.
McKinney. It's McKinney. McKinney's from Timmins, or from the surrounding Timmins area. So anyway, you just don't see it as like, oh, I'm going to be in show business. I'm in another country, not only just far away from Hollywood. I'm in another country, and I just didn't see it. But I saw there was this little show that was on local television called Tiny Talent Time, and I remember telling my grandmother, and I used to sing for my grandmother. I would sing "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head" for my grandmother, and I said to her, Grandma, I think I'd like to go on Tiny Talent Time, and she went, "Don't be ridiculous." A little kid telling jokes. Sing "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head" on Tiny Talent Time. So I just felt so discouraged by that, and I didn't know that this was possible. And I did a few variety nights, and
What's that?
variety night was something that my high school did every year, where the kids who danced, the kids who could put on sketches, would do a show. And I used to hang out at the local corner store and do my impressions to keep the hoodlums from beating me up. I would hang out in the pool hall, and I was a geeky kid, but they liked me because I made them laugh. And so all the tough guys kept me around, and I'd just be down in the pool hall doing Columbo impressions. Oh, that's a fantastic shot you made, sir. That's amazing. You banked that off. Unbelievable. Do you think you could do that with my eye? And so they laughed. They thought that was funny. And so one of them let the organizers of the writing down, goes, you should have that guy on. He does impressions. He's terrific. So I, sat down with the two guys organizing it. They wrote me a 5-minute act, celebrities as waiters. It still survived in some form in my last, bit.
Do you remember any of that at this point?
Well, let's see. Yes, I do remember it. Let's see. Okay, so the first one was, celebrities, before they became stars, everybody had to take an odd job. And so here's Johnny Carson. And so, of course, I turn around, because all impressionists turn around. Nothing actually changes. We're still the same person. So I turn around, be like, good evening and welcome to Chez Tomaine, where the specialty of the house is smoked salmonella. So, happy to say that's my joke. I contributed that joke with the two guys. So and I went on stage and I had like 4 minutes, a 4-minute stand-up act, and I got a standing ovation because I didn't suck. I got it for not sucking the big one, and I was hooked.
You had the dime bag.
More or less, yes. It became an addiction. The sound of laughter, especially of group laughter, became an addiction for me. And the first one's always free. And after that, I just went in pursuit of it. And I was lucky enough that, I initially thought I'm going to have to move to the States. So I had a friend, my first girlfriend's best friend, was this tenacious little thing. And we both worked at the same bakery. And so I said, I want to be on TV. And she said, let me call the Mike Douglas Show. Now, the Mike Douglas Show, for anybody under 60, Mike Douglas, hey, why you, I oughta. Mike Douglas was an afternoon talk show host who was very good, but he insisted on doing his show in Philadelphia, his hometown. So if you wanted to do the Mike Douglas Show, you went to his thing. And it was a national show. He had John Lennon and Yoko Ono on his show during the whole Love-In thing that they did. He was a very popular show to do. And I remember the first time I ever saw Mo Howard from the Three Stooges, like not being like, get out of here, why you, I oughta. He was on the Mike Douglas Show with Mike, and I think he was on with Yoko and John Lennon. And interesting, 6 Degrees of Separation thing, Jess Harnell's father, Joe Harnell, was Mike Douglas's band leader for all the time on that show.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So anyway, she badgered.
I can almost imagine John going, Yoko, who's this stooge over there?
That's very good.
That's me trying to do voices.
No, I think it's great. I'm not very good at it. I can sort of do Yakko, but I can't individuate the Beatles the way Jess can.
Well, you got to get that.
I did do Yakko's burps, by the way.
Liverpool, you got to draw the
There's a little Liverpool accent there. But I'm actually 1/10 of the Yakko performances. I did the burp, when Yakko is the great Yakko, when Wacko is the great Wackarati, where he sings at the Hollywood Bowl. There you go. Thank you. I have no uvula left, so I appreciate that.
No, the uvula is a very important part of the body.
It certainly is. Ooh. So anyway.
So you go to the Mike Douglas show.
So she badgers them until they have me down for an audition. So we travel to Philadelphia, she, my girlfriend, and I, and I'm 18 years old, and and I go into their offices, and this is the week they're dark. The show is in Los Angeles, so it's only like that talent coordinator and like 2 other people, and they stand there watching me do my act in the office. I do my 4 minutes for them, And they go, wow, terrific. I mean, I heard some titters, some laughs. And they said, well, you've got really talent, but you're going to have to get seasoning. And you're going to have to, like, pay your dues. And I was like, dues? Seasoning? I don't understand. I thought you just went on with your 4 minutes and you became an instant star like Freddie Prinze. Freddie Prinze's dad. That was my concept at 18 years old of how show business worked. So I went immediately to a club in Philadelphia, did one night, did very well. Came back down, went to New York, did the improvisation on the opening night, did very well. And luckily enough for me, Toronto opened up its first comedy club right around this time, and so I got made a regular.
Now that had a funny name, as I recall.
Yuck Yucks Comedy Club, Mark Breslin's Yuck Yucks. And Mark Breslin gave me my shot. He made me a regular immediately, and I was doing 3 and 4 nights a week at Yuck Yucks, and for free, but I was getting stage time and exposure.
Wait, you were getting paid in exposure.
Exactly. Back when that was actually a thing, back when believe it or not, it's actually a good thing. I mean, getting up 3, 4 nights a week. I'm a believer in the 10,000 hours theory. Malcolm Gladwell's from Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, and so I actually got to be fairly decent as a stand-up comic, and decided to move down here. Well, I didn't decide. Howie Mandel, who was at the time one of my best. Howie Mandel. I used to be the announcer on his afternoon talk show, and that's how I said his name.
Does everyone out here know who Howie Mandel is?
America's Got Talent, AGT.
Okay.
Dr. Wayne Fiskus from St. Elsewhere. The guy with the glove on his head and the diaper. Right? Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, just checking.
Well, at the time, Howie Mandel was the hottest thing. Nobody had ever seen anything like what Howie was doing. I mean, he literally dropped his pants, had a diaper on, threw a bonnet over his head, and was Bobby the Baby. And so, and from that came Bobby's World, the cartoon show.
Hello, my name is Bobby.
That's right. And, it's still, he says to this day, it's still the thing he's made the most money on. Creating that show when the Fox network was brand new and getting to own a piece of it. It's still in syndication somewhere in the world. So he and a gentleman of my acquaintance named Mr. Groening both came into the Fox network at the right time. Yes, Matt Groening, creator of The Simpsons. They both, had the good fortune to come into a time when a network needed as much content as possible, and so they gave away the store to these guys. Ownership is everything. So anyway, so Howie calls me up from LA and goes, Mo, you got to come down to LA, okay? Wait, what? No, okay. Okay, so if you saw Howie's early act, you know that was perfect. But Howie
They'll
said,
never know.
No. Howie convinced me. He said, you've got to move to Los Angeles. This is where it is. And so taking his encouragement, and I owe him for life for this, I packed up my little apartment and moved down and started playing the Comedy Store.
So there was a very prime opportunity that you mentioned when we were doing our prep.
What's that?
Something about a wedding anniversary?
The wedding anniversary.
You were substituting for someone?
Oh, my wedding anniversary. Yes. Yeah, so as I'm going along there, doing that, by the way, another guy that started at Yuck Yucks, who I saw on his very first night in comedy, Jim Carrey, when he was 15 years old. And in fact, when Jim talks about they came out, because he had an okay set. To him, it felt rough, felt terrible. He had an okay set. He and his father were leaving the club, and I saw them. They were walking in. It was just kind of like Dad had his arm around him, and it was such a beautiful sight to me to see this father supporting his young son. And I kind of saw myself there, and I thought to myself, well, what would I want? I'd want encouragement. So I ran after him, even though the bad part, the dark side of me was saying, yeah, keep walking, impressionist boy. I'm the club impressionist. Go on, go back to Barry, you little shit. Barry was the town he was from, and shit is, no, I'm kidding. Anyway, so But that part of me, the good part, thank God, won out, and I ran after him. I said, hey, listen, man, you were terrific up there. You've got some killer impressions. I mean, that Bruce Dern thing is unbelievable. You got to come back. You got to get seasoning and pay your dues. So just come back. You know, we got to be willing to go up there and have it go rough until it goes great. And, you know, I'm sure 7 other people said it to him that night because he always tells a story about that night. He says, they came up to me. I'm one of the they, anyway. So Jim now is at the point now where he's the opening act for Rodney Dangerfield, who I had loved as a kid watching the Ed Sullivan Show.
Everyone knows Rodney Dangerfield,
You know,
right?
right? I tell you, I'm all right now, but last week I was in rough shape, you know. Yeah, last week I went to bed with an inflatable girl. Now I got an inflatable guy looking for me, okay? Rodney was my favorite comedian, and I get a call because this one fellow who manages Howie, myself, and Jim Carrey, David Holliff. So Jim has to fall out of the show, so I get asked to be substitute opening act. So on my first wedding anniversary with my first wife, the girlfriend who went with me to Philadelphia, I was his opening act in San Francisco at a theater in the round here that I can't quite remember the name of. They've demolished it, but this was 30 plus years ago.
Couldn't tell you.
And I killed. It was great. It was theater in the round, and I was like, I loved moving around and playing to the crowd, and you know, that led to the 1985 Young Comedian special. The HBO used to do a thing where even before Comedy Central, we saw the hot young comedians. Was that on my night was Sam Kinison, Bob Saget.
Yep.
Yeah. Back when he worked dirty. If you look it up, look up 9th Annual Young Comedian Special. The whole thing is on Funny or Die, each comedian broken down. Harry Basil, Bob Nelson, Louis Anderson, Rita Rudner, and Yakov Smirnov. Yeah, all of us, it was pretty much our first times on national television. And, you know, it was a great night in comedy. Kinison had never done anything. Nobody would book him anywhere. And Rodney, you know, I was on the tour bus with Rodney. Rodney said, hey, Maurice, I got one spot open, you know. By the way, this is my Rodney. This is the way he would sit with a bathrobe that was coming open. And I'm on the tour bus with him, and he was always in a bathrobe. And the man's body was a terry cloth repellent. He had like a field, an energy field that repelled robes. And it just was always coming open. He said, hey, Maurice, man, tell you what, I got one spot open on my Young Comedian special. I know you're on it already, but who do you like? Who should I put on there? Who's hot? Who's new? Who's young? I said, Rodney, I've got to tell you, Sam Kinison is got a new act where he just kills it. You know, he's destroying people now. Because Sam used to go on at 2 a.m, and there would be like just a handful of comedians who would stay around for him and a couple of uninitiated tourists. And Robin Williams, I'd be standing in the back with Robin Williams and Freddie Asparagus, and we just watched Sam die, but being brilliant while dying because people just didn't get him. The comedians got him. But he finally got smart and rewrote his act to be a little more crowd-pleasing. And Rodney said, I don't know, man, Sam, I love Sam, but he can't cook in 5 minutes, you know? We only got 5 minutes on the show. And I said, Rodney, you've got to take another look at him because he has the meeting out of the palm of his hand with this 7-Eleven bit. And so he does it. He calls Sam up, he goes to see him, and puts him on the show. So, yeah. And so that was Sam's like entree into the lifestyle that eventually destroyed him. Oh, God. Anyway.
So things were looking up for you in the stand-up world. Next thing you know, you're at the Comedy Store.
I am.
The Comedy Store.
Yeah, I'd been a regular at the Comedy Store for a little while at this time, and yeah, it was a very good time in my life. I thought I was, you know, on my way to being a comic, but then, you know, I'm there, and my William Morris agent, the guy who discovered me, a guy named Aaron Cohen, brings Nina Nisenholtz, who just started the voiceover department, and she sees me. And she says, how would you like to do voiceovers with all those cartoon impressions, with all those impressions you do? You could do animation. And I said, well, I heard that was a closed door, you know. And I had been friends socially with Frank Welker because Frank Welker and Howie Mandel were good friends. And Frank, this is the beauty of Frank Welker. Frank Welker saw me do stand-up, said, "You're great. I'm going to start telling people about you." So for a year, I go sign with William Morris for voiceover, and I'm her very first client she's ever signed. And every audition I go to, the casting director says, "Oh, you're the guy Frank Welker was telling us about. Oh, Frank Welker told me about you." The generosity of spirit of Frank Welker, and if you don't know who Frank Welker is, look him up on the IMDb, but don't print it out, because his credits are 54 pages long. If you print it out in a 14-point Times New Roman font, you'll waste 54 pages when you could look at it on the thing. We're environmentalists here, so just look at it on your screen. But it's amazing what Frank Welker has done, and I'm proud to call him my mentor. Frank's first gig in animation was the voice of Freddy on Scooby-Doo.
Whoa.
In 1969. He's 71 years old, and he's still the voice of Freddy on Scooby-Doo.
And working with
And-
Casey Kasem.
And working with Casey Kasem. Yeah, I mean, and he's both Freddy and Scooby-Doo now, because the great Don Messick passed away. But Frank, man, I mean, he's the grand poobah of this. And my first job, after auditioning for a whole year.
Right, it's a rather famous role, too,
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
after I finally booked my first job, was Inspector Gadget's boss, Chief Quimby.
Can you give us a little Chief Quimby?
"Here's your assignment, Gadget." Gadget! And I also played henchman number 2 all through it. "Oh, I don't know if this is a good idea, but I think Dr. Claw will kick our asses for this, boss." And Frank was always the other henchman, and Dr. Claw, and Brain the dog. But I got to work alongside Frank for 26 episodes. He showed me all these beautiful techniques of how to work the mic, how to move the script without making any noise, so you get a nice 3-4 page run. It was amazing. Frank is the most generous man in voiceover, and I try to follow his example as best I can.
And then you get probably the role that I think really starts launching you.
Yeah, that one gave me some real momentum. We went from that right into real Ghostbusters. And they said out in the lobby, I remember them coming out and telling us, and the room was full. And they said, "Now nobody do impressions of the movie, okay? If we wanted to do this with impressions from the movie, we would get Bill Murray. We're the people who made the movie ourselves. And Ivan Reitman would just ask Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis to do themselves in the cartoon, and they'd do it. So don't do them. We're looking for the real Ghostbusters, the ones that the movie is based on." And I get in there and I have no ideas. I get in and I look at a picture of Egon, and Harold Ramis was so amazing. He's my favorite Ghostbuster. He's the heart and soul of the Ghostbusters, and the brains of the Ghostbusters. And so all that came out of me was my, somewhat off the nose Harold Ramis impression, and I became Dr. Egon Spengler, collector of spores, mold, and fungus. They came back and said, "All right, we talked about it. You can do an impression. Nobody else do any impressions." So. Yeah, and actually we're doing a Ghostbusters celebration in Los Angeles on June 8th on the Sony lot. Aykroyd will be there, Ivan Reitman will be there, Ernie Hudson will be there.
Wait, this is upcoming.
This is upcoming.
Wow.
To celebrate the 35th anniversary of the movie. And Frank Welker, Dave Coulier, and myself.
Wait, Coulier was on that show?
Coulier replaced Lorenzo Music.
Yeah.
God rest Lorenzo's soul. He passed away a few years ago. But Coulier took over the part of Venkman when, unfortunately, offhandedly, Bill Murray said at a party in the earshot of the producers, "So how come Harold's guy sounds like him, but my guy sounds like Garfield?" And they fell all over themselves to replace Lorenzo when it wasn't even a thing of no, I want him gone. Bill Murray didn't mean that. But, so yeah, midway through the series, they immediately replaced Lorenzo with Dave Coulier. And I felt, Lorenzo felt bad, and I felt bad. But I love Dave. Coulier's great, and he did a great job going forward. So the three the three of the four surviving real Ghostbusters will be there. Arsenio, unfortunately, I've been in touch with Arsenio quite a bit, but he cannot get out of his stand-up date on that night.
Bummer.
He's got a big stand-up show in Nashville that
Okay,
night.
so at this point, you've got this burgeoning stand-up career, you've got this burgeoning VO career, but somehow you wind up just going into voiceover.
Yeah. Well, okay. It's not a somehow. It's a big why.
That's true.
Yeah. In the middle of all of this, sort of upward momentum, I come home from picking my wife up from the airport, and she's been off in the Philippines making a movie, and I get the terrible news: my father has been killed, and he was murdered by a man who had been his friend his entire life, but who they'd had a falling out a couple of years before, and it turns out this man was a psychopath. And so my father was shot and killed in the lobby of the Royal York Hotel in Toronto, and I went down the rabbit hole of depression, drugs, alcohol, and stand-up comedy left me because my dad. See, I didn't have the typical showbiz dad who said, "What? You should have a backup plan." I had the dad who, in my younger years, my first memories of my father were watching him do the news on local television in Timmins. I used to go up and kiss the television set every day, and I wondered why he didn't kiss back, And then he took me down to the studio and showed me that the cameras only work one way, and then I understood. But
You thought he was really in there.
I thought he was in there, and the TV worked both ways, and that he had like a screen where you could see everybody who was watching. So I'm 4 at the time, And so anyway, my dad was my hero, and as I say, he had that time in the entertainment business, and then he left it because the money wasn't coming fast enough for him. He was a salesman by heart, just by what his skill set was. So he went into sales and became a very successful salesman. But he started out when we moved to Ottawa. He was in the same station as Peter Jennings and Alex Trebek.
You're kidding.
It was the three of them were in the makeup room at the same time. So, maybe if he'd have stuck with it, who knows? But anyway, he knew what it was to want to be in entertainment. So he said to me, "Look, you're not a work-a-day kind of guy. You're not going to be. You've got to follow your heart, and you've got talent. You've got to follow your dream." And he said, "I'll support you in anything you want to do." So I did have his support to become a comedian, and he came out to every show whenever he could, and he'd sometimes fly thousands of miles to come see me. He was in Europe, and I remember when I first played Vegas, he flew in from Europe just to be there for my opening night, and so when I lost him, I knew I'd never see him out there in the audience again or have him backstage with me, and so stand-up comedy lost a lot of its appeal for me because it was the thing that he was most proud of, that I'd made something of myself in that. So along with going down, as I say, the dark hole of drugs and alcohol, I just almost swore off stand-up. I was like, can't do it. But the voiceovers I could still do, and so I still, even though I was a stumbling drug addict, I could still show up to sessions and to try to hold it together. And I was able to maintain that for about 3 years until I couldn't. And thank God I met a group of friends who also don't drink and use one day at a time. And I haven't had a drink since January 20th, 1989, or drugs. Yeah.
30 years.
30 years plus.
And if, just so all of you know, who was at the Toasty Writer panel last night? So there this man is, 30 years clean and sober. Right around, I don't even know how many panelists were on that thing, just getting shit-faced. I don't know if I can say that here, but I think I just did. And
Or you could say what Morbo says, fit-chased. Anyway.
That's true. And he's managing to be just as entertaining as them without a lick of alcohol in his system.
You're very kind.
Well,
I mean,
I think it's because you have no shame.
I always look at it though this way. Somebody else is drinking is none of my business. If somebody wants to stop drinking, then it becomes my business, and I try to help them the way those first friends and friends that I have now help me one day at a time.
So you cleaned yourself up.
Yes.
Which is impressive as hell.
Thank you.
And at that point, some new doors opened up for you.
Yes, thank goodness. Right around the time I was clean and sober, which was 1989, and I went through that year, just doing little bits and things here. I was very lucky to get the job of being the voice of Toucan Sam in 1987. So,
yes.
Follow your nose, it always knows. Kellogg's Fruit Loop cereal with natural orange, lemon, and cherry flavors. So, thank you. I've done it ever since. It's the longest I've ever kept a job. There's holding auditions for this new show called Tiny Toons, and I hear that Steven Spielberg is the producer of it, and he wants his whole thing is making funny cartoons, like returning to the 1940s and 50s feel of Warner Brothers cartoons. And so I read, and I get the job of Dizzy Devil. And thank you. Yeah, we did.
Can you give us a little Dizzy?
Oh, yeah, bunny, yummy, dizzy, love, pizza roll, ha ha ha.
He's sort of the embodiment of ADHD, spinning around. And
walking id monster.
Yes, exactly. And having they didn't have that diagnosis for me when I was a kid, but I sure as hell would have been diagnosed if they.
Well, thank goodness no one gave you Adderall.
Oh, thank goodness. Yes. Yes. Can you imagine me on Adderall?
No,
I'd probably
I'd
still
rather
be
not,
on
really.
it. No, thank you. So anyway, so I got that, and then when they did the first auditions for the new Spielberg show, Animaniacs, I was lucky enough to be the first person they read on the first day of auditions at 9 a.m. And I was like, I'm habitually, it's not a good thing, but I'm habitually late. About half the time I'm 5 minutes late for sessions. Yeah, it's just not, it's something I don't know how to correct it. I suppose leave the house 5 minutes earlier. But
overrated.
This time I was 15 minutes early for the audition, fought the morning traffic, left my house at 7:30, and I was there. And they handed me the copy, and I read for Yakko and Wacko, and I read for Squid, and I read for Pesto, and I read for Bobby, and I read for this new character called Brain. And I looked at that picture, and I saw Orson Welles. I mean, that's what I thought. I thought they were like, oh, because I was kind of known for this. Every time there was a mic check, or any kind of thing, I would just do this outtake tape of Orson Welles doing a frozen peas commercial.
Yeah. Okay. So, how did before we let's just do a little tangent. How did you doing Orson Welles just start? Where did you discover?
Well, I
the
became
Orson
first
Welles voice?
fascinated with him and his voice in 1967 Casino Royale. I mean, the two people that stood out to me from that film were Woody Allen. With the, I kept repeating that line. Yes, I undress them and tie them up. Yes, it's absolutely. And Orson Welles, I'm going to have that check, Mr. Bond. And so, 1984, New Year's Eve, I'm on the job from hell. It's a 12-hour session. I missed my New Year's Eve party because of this job. So, Phil Proctor from the Firesign Theater gives me this tape to cheer me up, and it's all celebrity outtakes before that was a thing. And so I'm listening to it, and the very first thing on it is this outtake thing, and I'm playing it backwards and forwards. I mean, every time it starts, I can't believe that here's Orson Welles being as real as he gets, and he's still this. It sounds like the dialogue is so brilliant, it's written for him by him, and Mankiewicz. Anyway, so it starts like this. We know a remote farm in Lincolnshire where Mrs. Buckley lives. Every July, peas grow there. Do you really mean that? Oh, yes, I'd start about half a second late. Don't you think you really want to say July over the snow? Isn't that the fun of it? Well, if you could make it almost when that shot disappears, Olson, it'd make much more. I think it's so nice that you see a snow-covered field and say every July peas grow there. We know a remote farm in Lincolnshire where Mrs. Buckley lives. Every July, peas grow there. We aren't even in the fields, you see. No, we're not. We're talking about them growing, and she's picked them. I don't understand you then. What must be over for July? When we get out of that snowy field. Well, I was out. We were on to a can of peas, a big dish of peas when I say July. You are? Yes, always. I'm always past that. That's about where you say July. Could you emphasize a bit in July? Why, that doesn't make any sense. Sorry, there's no known way of saying an English sentence in which you begin a sentence within and emphasize it. Get me a jury and show me how you can say in July, and I'll go down on you. That's just idiotic, if you'll forgive me for my saying so. That's just stupid. In July. Love to know how you emphasize in July. Impossible. Meaningless. I think all they were thinking about was they didn't want... He isn't thinking. Also, we have one last one. It was my fault. I said, in July. If you could leave every July. You didn't say it. He said it. Your friend. Anyway, I won't do the whole thing for you.
Well, it's amazing you remember all of that.
Oh, I could do it. I could do it to the end, but it gets a little dirty.
So getting back to Animaniacs.
As if it didn't already become a little dirty.
And
Sorry.
although-
Trigger warning. Orson Welles swears.
And so we've already done a bit of the Orson Welles / Brain voice. So let's talk about some of those other roles that you played on
Well,
Animaniacs.
they by the way, so based on that, based on my looking at Brain and his furrowed brow and his jowly cheeks, I think Orson Welles. They didn't have Orson Welles in mind. There's a writer named Tom Minton. If you look him up on the on IMDb, you'll see that's the Brain's face as a human being. And he used to write with Tom Ruegger at Hanna-Barbera and was writing on Animaniacs. And that's who he was based on. And Tom Minton is a genius. And he talks in a very monotone way, and everything he does is very fast. Because his mind moves so fast, but he's got a wealth of knowledge that's unbelievable. And if I'd have done that, I think they would have gone next. But they booked me right on the spot. Ruegger and Andrea Romano just said, that's it, we found Brain. Okay, no more Brains today. Which is a shame because I know that they had John Delancey on the list to read for Brain. I know. I found out later that Delancey was like going to be the next person to read for Brain, and they just told him not to bother. But they booked me right at that point for Brain, and it took them 2 days to find Pinky, my dear friend Rob Paulson. Yeah. But at the end of day one, the front runner for Pinky was John Aston, TV's Gomez from the Addams Family.
Oh my!
Wouldn't that have been fun?
That could have been fun.
I mean, I love it. I love that it's Rob, but John is just amazing.
So, okay, so which just to remind the crowd, who were some of your other famous voices?
Oh, I
from
played
Animaniacs?
Squid the Pigeon in The Goodfeathers, the Ray Liotta pigeon. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a good feather. And I played a lot of the nemesis of Yakko, Wacko, and Dot. The first one being Michelangelo. What have you done to my beautiful ceiling? They covered it up. It's covered in naked people. We like painting naked people. His Eminence is here. I played Miles Standish as Richard Burton. Oh, my PT pajamas, I loved him so. And Willie Slackmer. Willie Slackmer was a take on William Shatner when they're all out for karaoke. It's called Karaoke Dokie, the episode. And I called them my friends, my small friends. I'd like to read Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. So.
Oh, yeah, okay. The spoken word album. Oh my God.
She packed my bags last night, pre-flight. 0 hour, 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high. As a
In case
kite by then.
In case any of you don't know about this, there is actually, so help me God,
Oh my God, yes.
a musical album that you can find if you look hard enough called The Transformed Man
Yes.
by William Shatner. And it is hilarious.
Yeah, it's brilliant in its own way. And then he came back and did an album with Ben Folds in the last 15 years. Still all talk singing stuff, but I think it was nominated for a Grammy. Yeah. No, I'm convinced Shatner's a genius. I really am. First of all, his genius was when the outtake tape of him came out, of him berating a guy doing directing him in a Star Trek game. I don't say sabotage. You say sabotage. I say sabotage. Spock sabotage the system. That thing. It goes, please don't tell me how to do it. It sickens me. Being confronted with that on the Howard Stern show, he got that he should be in on the joke instead of pushing against it. He embraced it and embraced the character of him and stopped taking himself so seriously. And I think that started the second resurgence of his career. Mm-hmm. No, I think I'm convinced Shat's a genius.
Right on. So okay. So
Shat is a genius, and I am insane.
So who else did you do on Anime Next? So you were a ton of the voices on that show.
I did. I was. Let's see. Let's run down. God, I mean, they had so much for me in there. Do you know any? Can you think of? Is there one you're thinking of?
You realize I'm completely blanking.
Okay. All right. So am I.
Well, that's fine.
I'm not good at remembering my resume.
Let's just go to Pinky and the Brain.
All right.
You guys want to go to Pinky and the Brain? Okay. I think they're happy with that.
Me too. Me too. Pinky and the Brain. We did the first episode that we recorded was the one with Jeopardy, the one where they're on Jeopardy, and something about doing that show with just me and Rob in the room. We went through it. We kind of hit the notes of that, that Pinky's the annoying one and Brain's the slow burn one, and all that. And there was something that we didn't know it was magic. We didn't know it would be a hit. But at the end of the episode, we just went, that's one of the smartest things we've ever read. I love these guys. I hope they come back. Do you think they'll be back? I hope so. Gosh, let's do those guys again. Because Animaniacs at the beginning was just seeing, taking spaghetti noodles and throwing them up against the fridge to see which ones would stick. They had so many things that they did. And, like Katie Kaboom didn't last. Katie Kaboom was, a pay into, teen angst. And, they made 3 of them or 4 of them and then went, okay, it's enough of Katie Kaboom. We get the point. Teenage girls exploded their parents. But Pinky and the Brain came back and back and back. And the plots to take over the world got zanier and less and less realistic. But they realized what they had there was the story of a friendship. And
dare I say a bromance?
A bromance indeed. A brain man.
A brain man.
A brain man.
A very tender brain man.
It certainly was. And they realized that it's not the plots to take over the world. They can be as zany as they want. People are tuning in because Pinky and the Brain love each other. And Pinky has no trouble showing it, but Brain wouldn't show it unless it was going to save Pinky's life. And there's a couple of instances where Brain does, and Pinky does. And that's what we're watching. We're watching that.
Even at the cost of the plot.
Of the plot to take over the world. Yeah. He will abandon a plot to take over the world if it means that something bad will happen to Pinky. So, that was the magic of Pinky and the Brain, and we watched that. So it's kind of like its own friendship is magic thing, or magic is friendship. But that's what made it so great for us. And Rob Paulson and I, just as an extension of that, have become the dearest of friends. We're still, even after the show ended, we still stayed in touch. We still grabbed lunch and.
That chemistry is obvious every time I see an interview with you two or an appearance with you two. It's plain to see that you two are more than just work colleagues.
Oh, I love the man. And we probably text or call each other 3 times a week.
See, I was dying when they got you for the show and they didn't get Paulson, and I was like, I only get to book Maurice? Not that.
Wouldn't that have been great?
Let's not make it sound like only Maurice. But
well, Rob, I think Rob was in. He guested a couple times on the first iteration of Pony, the long ago one. But I know that you're all about.
A Gen 4 show.
You're a Gen. What's that?
Rarity's dad.
There you go, Rarity's dad.
That wasn't Paulson, was it? No, Rarity's dad was. That was like one of the like Drummond or somebody. Peter New.
All right. Well, I know Rob did something on Pony because I told him I was
Old
doing this.
Pony.
Old Pony, on Old Pony. Yes.
Well, hell, so did Scott Menville. What's your point?
All right. Anyway, so he couldn't come to this. So anyway, but yeah, I would love that. I would have loved that.
It wasn't one of the episodes where there was some kind of accident involving a microwave and non-dairy creamer.
And non-dairy creamer, because nobody knows how a microwave works, or either one of those works. And then it comes out later in the episode. Yeah, everybody knows how they work.
But not both of them together.
But not both of them together. Indeed. Yeah, that was our first primetime episode. We got spun off to Sunday nights. They figured we'd be competition for The Simpsons. Unfortunately, they didn't put us opposite The Simpsons. They put us opposite this little show that never went anywhere called 60 Minutes. Ratings powerhouse 60 Minutes. It still wins Sunday nights all these years later. I'm Morley Safer. I am the brain. and I'm over on the WB. Watch me there.
Well, you know, so there have been shows where you've been a lot of the characters. One of which I think is dear to many people's hearts in this room is Futurama, where any voice that isn't Billy West or Bender is any male voice that isn't those two is pretty much you, right?
I did take
Just
the
about.
majority of the male guest voices on the show.
I mean,
yes.
you are, after all, the master of the dramatic.
Buzz Calculon, the star of all my circuits and owner of unholy acting talent. And I'm also Morbo, the newscaster. In fact, when your president came out with his little theory about windmills causing cancer, I screamed, "Windmills do not work that way," at my television set.
And your good friend Richard Nixon.
Oh, and my dear friend Richard Nixon, yes.
Weren't you a high potentate of some sort on that show?
Oh,
A king. Or the.
oh, you
leader
mean Lur, ruler of the planet Omicron Persei
of-
IA,
Yeah, that's the guy.
who sounds nothing like Morbo, as you
Not
can hear.
at all, no.
Here is Morbo, and here's Lur, ruler of the planet Omicron Persei IA. Totally different guys.
Well, I think Morbo is more aggressive, and Lur is more of a doofus.
Lur is hapless, and Lur is, I think he's just a slight bit higher in pitch, just a little bit. Morbo is very stentorian, because he does the news, so he must pronounce every word correctly. And so, and Lur wants to eat people, Morbo wants to conquer them.
Good old Kif, of course. Can you give us a
Oh, Lieutenant Kif Croker, yes, I feel so sorry for him. He has to shave, he has to manscape Zab Brannigan. Oh my gosh.
Well, and of course, that's a voice that's very different from these bombastic ones.
Yes, no, I mean, I go all over the spectrum with Futurama. There's also the Don Bot. Let me mafia things up a little bit for you over here. Clamps? Give him the clamps.
You want the clamps, boss? I'll give him the clamps. I'll clamp every single one of yous. Clamp, amp, damp.
Hey, a personal favorite of mine is Hedonism Bot.
Oh, my, yes. Do you know it's impossible for me to do a hedonism bot without doing this?
I am not
The
surprised.
engineer constantly has to come out and move the microphone, and he's a very handsome young man. Ooh.
Or for that matter, you've done some very notable secondary voices on Rick and Morty, quite the popular show.
Gentlemen, there's a solution here you're not seeing. Yeah.
Good old.
Permit me to emancipate you from your own inferior genes. Aberdolf Linkler.
Aberdolf Linkler.
Aberdolf Linkler.
what
We
about-
love Linkler. I was just doing a Rick and Morty last week, and because we're working on the next season.
That he can't tell you about.
I can't tell you about it, unfortunately, but Justin and I were just talking about how can we bring back Linkler. We got to get Linkler. We got to give him his own episode. Him and that random kid that he went off to that planet with, and it was like the love for Linkler in the writers' room is so great, and yet these people are so precise in their writing, paying so much attention to story that it's got to make sense. They can't do fan service even if they themselves are the fans. So right now there's no way they can figure out to bring back Linkler, but they hope by the end of their 78 episode order, they figure out some way that makes sense for Linkler to come back.
I have to say, when Maurice was telling me this when we were doing our interview prep, I just launched into this rant. Oh my God, they've got the whole multiverse to work with. Of course they can bring Linkler back. I was like, "Arr!" I was practically ready to go running out and find Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon and just like,
Nope.
Do it.
It's got to make sense. It's got to be something.
what about dear poor Morty Jr.?
Oh, Morty Jr. Well, it was not an easy time, but yes, basically for Morty Jr. I just did me, thinking back on my
Very
childhood.
sad, you. Yeah.
Sad me, yes.
But there was dancing.
There was dancing. It's funny. Justin is always looking for a cartoon that's so bizarre. Justin always wants me to keep it real. So you'll notice there's not these big variations in the voice. It's very much still me, just different aspects of me. So when I play a general, I'm very authoritarian. But but otherwise, I'm very. It's not.
I don't do big, crazy voices for Justin. Well, there's a voice I've never done before. I've also never done that with my hands before. Somebody filmed this, and I remember it the next time I read for another show. Not a Justin Roiland show, but this is a character I've never done. Holy shit.
All right.
You've watched me discover a character. Me, Maurice LaMarche.
All right, now I'm only going to do a couple more questions because I know that you guys want to get up to the mic and start asking some of yours. So start lining up. Start lining up.
Oh my gosh.
One question that
Oh no.
one question that poor Amber did not get to ask Maurice at the VA panel, I told her I'd ask on her behalf.
Okay, sure.
That since this is your first role in our lovely horse fandom, did you have any idea what you were getting yourself into with this bunch?
Well, Tara and I are longtime friends. Tara and I actually were on. I was on Tara's first U.S. show, Gadget Boy and Heather. So Tara played Agent Heather to my baby Gadget until Don decided to do it, but I played 5 other parts in that show.
Don Adams?
Don Adams. That's right. Don Adams played baby Gadget
Missed
Boy.
it by that
Missed it by that much. So I've known Tara a long time, and so yeah, she told me, just how intense the fandom is, and I think it's really amazing that you guys are so dedicated to this show, and it speaks to something in your characters as well, the gentleness and the positive message of Pony. So I've always looked at it as a great thing. So I've actually, when Nicole Dubuque, came on board to write, I actually said to her, I said, I wish I could get on Pony. I mean, I would love to go do one of those Pony.
You actually jumped at the chance.
Oh yeah, when she finally had something for me, I was like, I didn't know that she was, talking to me. She was texting me, saying, please call me. And I was like, okay, as soon as I'm done with this session. So it took me a couple of days to get back to her. She thought I wasn't interested. And then when I finally got back to her, she said, would you like to do a character on Pony? And I said, are you kidding me? Sure. She said, he said, it's kind of a villain. He's kind of a jerk. I said, I do jerk.
That might not have come out like you expected.
Exactly. I'm sorry, I did.
But I also have this voice here that I just came up with.
So have we lived up or down to expectation?
Up, absolutely. Lived up. You people are beautiful. I'm just so enjoying meeting every one of you. So yes, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, and I'm honored to be a part of the show.
All right, so I'm thinking,
especially the message of it is so important. I mean, this is where we examine bigotry, see where it comes from, and it comes from ignorance. It comes from fear. And really, Naysay is just a fearful character. He's just scared of the different. And thank goodness he becomes, he changes his ways by the end of the am I spoiling it for anybody? I'm assuming everybody here has seen every episode of Pony, so I hope I'm not spoiling it. But
all right, so let's do a lightning round.
All right, lightning round.
Lightning round of some of the wonderful, wonderful voices you've done, just to remind people of the incredible range in your career.
Well,
so let's start with one of my personal favorites because I'm the one interviewing you.
Okay.
The Tick.
You mean the evil midnight bomber? What bombs at midnight? Oh, bad is good, up is down. Yeah, baby, yeah.
That's the guy.
That was actually when I did that. It was right after Kinnison died, and so that was my little tip of the hat, my little tribute to Sam for the evil midnight bomber. I was also the deadly bulb, whose real name was Pig Leg, because he had a pig for a leg. And I can't remember the name of the character, but he was a dolphin in his fish show.
Yeah, I was not able to remember that either.
Yeah, I know. And so he was, but his voice was based on Kirk Douglas, much like Father from Kids Next Door.
Zootopia.
Zootopia, I played a guy with I love icing people. But now I've retired and I've opened a bakery, and the only icing I do is on cakes. I was Mr. Big, that's right.
And breaking out your
Skunk butt rug. Do you know how many takes it took for me to say skunk butt rug? I kept messing it up. You try it. Say skunk butt rug. Everybody, right now. Skunk butt rug. You guys should be in voiceover, and I should retire. That was very good.
Little role in the Wreck-It Ralph movies.
Oh, yeah, sure. Take a look, Ralph. I don't know. They don't keep a lot of medallions, but I got a few in that box back there.
Yep, you were the tapper. Yeah.
Root beer tapper, yeah.
What are some that people might not know so well?
Okay. Don't feel it. Conceal it. Don't let it show. These gloves will help. I was the king in Frozen.
Oh, let's get some disenchantment going. Disenchantment?
Disenchantment, I play Prime Minister Oddball. Yes, who's got a particularly dark side to him that you'll find out about in season 2.
And does anyone here remember The Critic? Anyone? Yeah? Can you give us a few voices from The Critic? Because you were a lot of
Well,
voices
for one
on
thing,
The Critic.
I was Jeremy Hawke, who was the critic's best friend, Australian movie star, sort of amalgam between Paul Hogan and Mel Gibson. And so, yeah, that was, in fact, Jeremy Hawke hosts a Saturday Night Live show, and turns out he does a terrific Johnny Carson. Gee, I wonder who they got to play that. And I was also Shackelford the butler. Good afternoon, adopted Master J. And I did almost all the celebrity impressions in the show. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like particularly Orson Welles.
Yes, I did do Orson Welles. Rosebud. Yes, rosebud frozen peas, full of country goodness and green penis. Wait, that's terrible. I can't believe I said that. I'm leaving. All right. Just a handful for the road. Oh, what luck. I found a French fry in my beard.
And what about Mrs. Pell's fish sticks?
Mrs. Pell's fish sticks. They're even better when you're dead.
Any last favorites?
Oh, gosh. Gentlemen, XYZ. Captain Picard, and their flies are all down.
All right, Kitty Winks. Unfortunately, we only have another 15 minutes, so I'm sorry that I've hogged all the time. Sorry.
Each of you, how many do we have in line there?
A few.
Yes? Probably about 10? All right.
Hey, unfortunately,
90 seconds per question.
Unfortunately, the cosplay contest is in here at 1:30, so you know,
All right.
what are you going to do?
Line up in order of how much beryllium it takes to kill you. The episode where Lur goes to Comic-Con, I have to say, totally unexpected, because but that's the episode I won an Emmy for. So
Well, personally, this human concept of love confuses and infuriates me.
so that was a callback to that line. That was the episode that gave me my Emmy. So I'm very yes.
All right, first questioner. What do you got for Maurice?
How you doing today? I'm glad I'm here.
I'm feeling much better. You know, I woke up sick as a dog, and I did not drink, but I'm sometimes prey to migraines. But I'm feeling so much better just having been here among you. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to ask the question about if you knew what you were getting into in this fandom, so I guess kind of expand on the question. How does this fandom so far compared to some of the other fandoms from like anime, Rick and Morty fandoms, and some of the other fandoms?
You know what? I love all the fandoms, and I'm appreciative of anybody that wants to call themselves a fan of anything I've been a part of, or me directly. But there's a sweetness and a kindness to you people that is it's so intense with you, and and a thoughtfulness that is very, very it gives me hope that humans can be this nice. So thank you very much.
Aww. We started on a positive note. That's fantastic. Yeah. Next question. Bring it.
I guess what I'd like to know is after building most of your career down in the States, in Hollywood and LA, right down in this area, were you happy to have a job that could take you back home to Canada when you came into Pony?
Yes. I take any opportunity to get back home. Even though the show's recorded in Vancouver, Vancouver's like a second home to me. I've got many friends there, and we recorded Gadget and the Gadgetinis there, so I'd go up there every other weekend to record 2 or 3 episodes. So yes, I'm very, very thrilled to work with my Canadian friends and.
Oh, so you did get to actually record at DHX with
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, but I didn't get to.
fantastic.
I recorded alone, so I didn't get to work with any of the other actors. But the crew up there is fantastic, and yeah, very, very happy to be part of anything Canadian. Yeah, they're not. Originally, when I first moved down here, a lot of Canadian friends say, "Yeah, you come back with your tail between your legs and all that." But I'm glad to have stuck it out here. But always glad to go home.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the gentleman in the lovely Judy Hopps hat.
Hello.
Hello, listen, I'm not gonna ice you, You saved my daughter from that gigantic donut, so I owe you. I will take your kindness and pay it forward.
I would love to know it seems to be like the most famous line of all time, practically, or the most famous bit from Pinky and the Brain, but I would love to know which writer came up with Pinky, are you pondering what I'm pondering, et cetera, et cetera.
I believe that would be Peter Hastings. I think he wrote the first. That has been there since the beginning. There's only one episode where somebody wrote, are you thinking what I'm thinking? But are you pondering what I'm pondering, I believe was a Peter Hastings ism. It worked so well, they just kept bringing it back. So yes, I think we give props to Peter.
Ah, the lovely gent with the Starlight Glimmer plushie.
Hello, Maurice.
Hello.
I just want to say I love all your work and what you've done for
Thank you.
the animated community. And I actually knew about the Frozen, you voicing the King, because you actually replied to me on Twitter about that.
Oh, great.
Sometime I think you don't remember that, but this is kind of a really ridiculous question for me to say, and I'm probably going to be the one to say it, but do you have a favorite pony in our fandom?
You mean a favorite pony in the fandom or on the show?
On the show, actually. Sorry.
Well, I'd have to say because she's one of my dear friends, Twilight Sparkle. So, yeah,
Thank you so much, Maurice.
that's Tara, right?
Yeah, that's Tara, and she is totally best pony.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Hello, Maurice.
Hi.
I had a question. What was it like doing the Pinky and the Brain sketch for Channel Awesome?
That I'll tell you. Okay, I almost feel like, as we say
And this might need a little explanation.
Okay. Yeah, I almost feel like I owe amends to many animated fans that feel like we ruined their childhood. Doug, who has the channel, interviewed us when we were at the con, whichever con it was. It was in Connecticut. Connecticon, idiot. So anyway, I guess the headache is still pressing on those brain cells. So he asked, after the interview, he said, would you guys come up to the room and just do a quick little sketch thing that I wrote? And we said, sure, yeah. We came up to the room and we read it down. And I said, are any kids going to see this? And he said, no, probably not. Kids don't follow my channel. So we went in front of the cameras, and he said, you know what? Say that at the end. Say, are any kids going to see it? So, we didn't know it was going to be part of this larger, half-hour drama that he was doing, comedy drama, based on The Purge. We just thought, it was this little sketch on his channel, and so we did this thing where Pinky and the Brain finally loses it and swears his head off at Pinky and makes him cry, and then it gets put into this whole in context, this thing where he realizes in order to go back in time and fix the Purge, he has to break up Pinky and the Brain. So that's what happened. So we weren't quite ambushed or into it, but I didn't quite know where it was going or the impact it would have. And then when somebody put up the animation only out of context, I was sort of like, oh my gosh. And people, it was like 7 comments, this is hilarious, this is fantastic, this is beautiful, this is great. And the 7th comment, you ruined my childhood. That's all I could think was like, oh my gosh, I have a responsibility to that person, I can't just, be doing swears as the brain. So I felt terrible, you know, but it did play in the larger context. When you see the whole episode, there's a reason he has to get Pinky and the Brain mad at each other. And so that was what it was like. It was literally, I said, our kid's gonna see this, we put it in a thing. So it's like art imitated life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You
Have
bet.
a good day.
Thank you, you too. You're not one of those that's mad at me, are you?
I doubt it. He seems all right.
I didn't ruin your childhood. Oh, good.
Oh, hey Maurice, I was just
Hi.
wondering, have you met a celebrity that you do an impression of, and did you ever have a weird meeting?
Oh, I think we got a good one. Oh, actually, I think this is a great time to tell about Vincent.
Yeah.
Not an impression of, but this I think is a good story to tell.
Yeah,
here.
no, I did. I told you yesterday, but I'll tell it in a second. I didn't do him for him though. I met Sean Connery once, and I did not go. You know, he said I was in the parking lot of this shopping center in Beverly Hills, and he was looking for a restaurant, and I just said, Mr. Connery, I'm a big fan. He goes, thank you very much. Do you know where Shane's restaurant is? And I said, yes, it's right down there. And he goes, thank you very much. I was like, he said thank you very much to me the way he says it, the way James Bond says it. Rodney has heard me do him, and he said, oh man, that's a good impression, but man, don't do the impression when you go out there, okay? Because they're waiting for me, and if you do me, then it takes some of the steam out of me being me. Let me be me. You do all those other 180 impressions you do, all right? Okay? You're all right, Maurice. And then, you know, I did get to meet somebody who I dubbed. Vincent D'Onofrio did a fantastic job playing Orson Welles in Ed Wood, but he didn't do the voice to Tim Burton's liking. He kind of decided to go up the octave for some reason. So Burton, being a fan of animation and being an animator himself, just went, we'll get the guy who does the brain. So I went up and dubbed that entire scene between Johnny Depp and Orson Welles in Ed Wood, and I thought, you know, after I was done, I thought, oh gosh, I hope Vincent D'Onofrio doesn't hate me. I walk around worrying people will hate me. I worried that man would hate me. So finally got to meet him at AwesomeCon a couple of years ago, and he was very nice. And he said, no, it's Tim's movie. If that's what Tim wanted to do, no problem at all. And you did a great job. And I said, so did you. And we still trade tweets or DMs, and you know, so it's good. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next question.
Wow, it's you.
Wow, it's you.
I met you outside the hotel, and I
Yes.
came off as kind of a spaz, so I apologize.
No, you didn't.
And also, I'm sorry for that comment about ruining my childhood. I didn't mean it.
Oh no, not at all. You sure?
Mostly.
Are you sure we're okay? We're good?
We're good.
Yay.
You,
All right.
I love you.
Excellent.
I love you more than words. It's such a cliche, but we all mean it when we say we got to grow up with your voice.
Thank you.
Oh, just pierces right through our hearts.
Well, it's very kind. Thank you.
I was wondering,
And I don't miss the honor of that and the responsibility of that, by the way. So thank you very kindly for letting me into your childhoods.
oh, our pleasure.
You could have switched the channel. You fools!
There were only 12 dials, though, back in the day.
That's true back in the day. I remember those days.
But so that being said, I wonder if we could get a command performance by the great Wackarati.
Oh, boy. Just a quick one. Let's hear.
Another classical work performed by the
Yes.
great Wackarati.
Ooh.
Thank you, my friend.
Oh, by the way, I was also the narrator for that. And now, the great Wackarati.
I see that the manliest brony in the world has a question.
Yes.
Yes. Did you know of Postmodern Jukebox before they called you?
But Rob Paulson was a huge fan of theirs. I had never seen them before. I discovered their music on the way to the shoot.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know what they did. I had no idea. Rob called me up because it was originally just going to be Rob, and Rob said, you know, why don't we see if Mo wants to come? So they said, bring a white shirt, and we've got suspenders, and you'll be a bartender. And so I went down to the mansion where they shoot it, and so while I'm driving there, I've got them up on my iPhone, and I'm listening to the YouTube, and I'm going, these guys are good. Holy crap, these guys are amazing. So when I got there, I kind of knew what to expect. But they do that music live. When they make those postmodern jukebox videos, they're not lip syncing. It's like live, one take, static shot, and they do it perfectly, or they go back and start again. We ran that thing 8 times. Rob and I totally improvised our little sketch behind the bar, and it was a great night. We only blew one take. Otherwise, we made it to the end of the song each time.
Answered all of the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you. They're brilliant.
Next question.
If you guys have not seen it, YouTube, Postmodern Jukebox, watch all their stuff, but there's one thing. They do the theme song to Pinky and the Brain as a torch song. Yeah, and it's the vocalist, I think her name is Michelle Gaglia. She's amazing. She's beautiful, and her voice is fantastic.
So yesterday at the script reading, you mentioned that Pinky keeps getting control of the Trump bot.
Yes.
Is Brain the one doing the hirings or the firings?
Of course I'm doing the firings. I must weed out the chaff from the grain, my friend. Yes. Basically, it breaks down like this. If Trump has done something you like, it's me. If not, it's Pinky.
So back to Pinky and the Brain.
Yes.
What was your reaction and also the reaction of the rest of the cast when they decided to bring in the Elmira character?
I'll be honest. I'll be brutally honest with you. I was like, oh, this is not going to work because Pinky is the stupid one. We're going to put him in the middle. Elmira is stupider than Pinky, and so it's going to be it sort of threw the balance off for me. I love Cree Summer. Cree is one of my dearest friends. We had the same manager for many years. I absolutely love her. I just felt the show wouldn't work because it upset the chemistry. I was actually delighted with the result. I think it still plays. And for Brain to have 2 protagonists, 2 annoyers, actually gave me more chance to be that curmudgeon thing that I love doing with him so much. Plus, Tim Curry, Andrea Martin, Jane Weedland. I mean, these people in the cast. I would never have met those people if it wasn't for Pinky Elmira in the Brain, and it was wonderful.
Thank you.
Worked out.
And
We have time for the last question.
I think it's very appropriate that the last question come from Raoul Duke.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you're going to have to.
Thank you. Okay, so as we know, we're nearing the end of the fandom. Oh, not the fandom. The show. You've had a.
Don't you dare!
God damn it.
We have to do a con in 2020,
Yeah. Okay, so basically, the show's ending soon. There is talk of G5 coming out. Would you ever consider maybe doing some guest roles in G5?
Absolutely. I'd love to do anything to be part of this universe and
Please
to work
do.
with these people again.
Yeah.
They're marvelous. The creatives behind this show are tremendous, and I would be back in a heartbeat, in a New York second. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for everything.
Thank you.
So, ladies, gentlemen, those in between, thank you for spending an hour and a bit with myself and, well, much more importantly, with Maurice LaMarche.
No, not equally importantly. Thank you so much for being a wonderful interviewer and for doing this whole con. I mean, this is really a wonderful experience. We thank you so much for what you've done. Thank you, Sonia, very much. God bless. Yes. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, everyone, cosplay contest in 15. You know what to do. And oh, by the by, your last chance for an autograph or photograph or little voice recording from Maurice is like next up in the autograph room, so don't miss that. Okay?